TikTok might have just got banned, guys. If it is, I might have to go get our Coca-Cola and drink up. Because, oh my goodness, I've waited so long. Okay, listen. I am for having the freedom of speech, right? Freedom of apps, you know. If you want an app from whatever region, you should get one. But here's the problem with TikTok, okay? TikTok collects data. You know what? So does Google, we might say. Okay, Google at least is American, right? But the problem with China collecting data is that they can use it to do whatever they want, right? Data is a very powerful tool, and if with data you can do a lot of things, a lot of dangerous things, a lot of bad things. Now here's a problem. If they have our data, then what that means is basically they can spy on us. And that's a no-no. Right? So anyway. Well, that's why I've been vouching for its ban. Also, not only that, but I have said that because, you know, everybody acts like a complete fool on TikTok, okay? Everybody acts like an idiot. And it's time for that to stop. Anyway, I was reacting to Charlie's talk about this.
Unconstitutional. Before showing you
Unconstitutional.
I'll read their statement. This unconstitutional law is a
Unconstitutional.
Challenge it in court. We believe the facts and the law are clearly on our side, and we will ultimately prevail.
You're being banned because you are a national security threat, TikTok. Not because we are, you know, we're against, you know, freedom of speech. No, we're literally for freedom of speech. You are threatening our very system of security. That's the reason you've been banned off of government-owned devices. Stop trying to beat around the bush. Stop trying to basically say something that is not true. Lies.
The fact is, we have invested billions of dollars to keep U.S. data safe and our platform free from outside influence and manipulation.
They could just be saying that.
This ban would devastate 7 million businesses and silence 170 million...
It would devastate millions of businesses and it would silence 170 million Americans. Guys, look at this. I'm silenced because I don't have TikTok. Okay, yeah, silencing millions of Americans. Yeah, go ahead, cry. I'm crying on the inside for you. Silence 170 million Americans. I guarantee you that on the same phone as people have TikTok, they have Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, freaking, I don't know, Snapchat, you know, text, the internet, anybody, freaking email. You're not silencing 170 million Americans by banning the app. Ooh, I'm shaking, I'm so excited.
Americans. As we continue to challenge this unconstitutional ban, we will continue investing and innovating to ensure TikTok remains a space where Americans of all walks of life can safely come to
Yeah, all walks of life, that's cute. Walks of life on that website, which sucks.
Will it be banned? Will it not be banned? I've kind of flip-flopped on my opinion of that. I negatively view TikTok. I don't have a good impression of it because I think the good on it, which undeniably there is good things that have come
is
from
rare.
By giving everyone a voice, there is moments where it's able to highlight very important problems that are going on, and there are good content creators on there that are providing high
I don't doubt that there is good
and
content
educational
creators.
entertainment at some points on TikTok. It's also been huge for businesses, like just normal mom and pop businesses like that have been utilizing TikTok as a way of growing and
And I will say, for the business part, it sucks, but that's just the consequence.
All of this is outweighed by the overall culture.
I've never downloaded TikTok. I haven't even hovered my finger over the download button of TikTok ever.
Subway Surfers gameplay with cutting soap videos plastered on there because they know that the audience can no longer focus on just...
It can't. It's ruining attention span.
Stimulation and jingling keys to keep them there because it has damaged people's ability to focus. And also, a lot
No kidding. I literally be talking to my dad, and he'll be like just into his phone, and he won't even talk back to me. Like the dude's literally just not wanting to talk to me because he's on TikTok, and it's kind of sad, to be honest with you.
Blows up on TikTok is the content that is just literally wrong, like fake garbage.
Exactly.
That serves
Or
just
a
to
complete
fear monger.
bigotry.
Like, for instance, the easiest example.
But you know what? I swear, okay? So much hate, so much bigotry, and so much vitriol has come around in this world ever since TikTok's been introduced. You notice how every group of people, every ethnicity, race, and gender, all that stuff, they were all like peaceful towards each other. But the moment TikTok dropped and 2020 hit, maybe it was a combination of TikTok and the pandemic, but it feels like a level of hatred and just sickness came out in people, which is really just sad. Just how people can't get along.
The solar eclipse. There were thousands of videos about the solar eclipse about to open up a demon portal because CERN's working behind the scenes during the solar eclipse. Summoning during the solar eclipse. All kinds of mumbo jumbo that serves just to keep the audience on TikTok scared and stupid, so that way they're constantly spending money to stop being scared and feeling stupid. So it's all very, like, there's some evil shit on there. It's also very dangerous because there's a lot of things that blow up on there that actually just get people killed, like the blackout challenge, or like the Kia challenge, where you're
or the devious look challenge.
Stupid challenge. Like the angry old man on the lawn, but I don't need to because all of you, I think, know that. But even with all that being said, I still overall feel that it's important that people have the ability to make choices for themselves, and if they choose to download TikTok, they should have the ability to do so. I don't like the government being the one to decide what you can and cannot access.
Same here.
In regards to like an app on your phone. Now, in this case, I do recognize that TikTok is significantly shadier than most of the other major companies.
It is. They literally
but still,
hack your phone.
I think it is a scary precedent. If
quote unquote hack, I should say. They actually take all your data.
They don't like. Obviously, within reason, if it's just purely illegal content and distributing just a bunch of illegal criminal shit, clearly slap that down. That makes sense. But come on, it's a social media app. Like, who's to say there won't be another major platform or service that pops off in the United States that isn't owned by the United States? And who's to say they won't be like, okay, fuck them. We were able to ban TikTok, let's go ahead and ban these guys too. It's not American made, we don't want it here.
Hi everyone, the show here. As you may have heard, Congress passed a bill that the President signed into law that is designed to ban TikTok in the United States. That will take TikTok away from you and 170 million Americans who find community and...
They're gonna really harp on the 170 million Americans part, aren't they?
This is a ban. A ban on TikTok and a ban on you and your voice.
I don't think there's anyone on the planet...
They're not banning your voice. They're banning your voice from TikTok.
There's no smoke and mirrors here, no diversion. They're not mixing any words here to try and confuse you. It is just straight up a ban. Like, they're not hiding. That fact. They either sell TikTok to an approved buyer, or they can no longer...
No, I think they should actually just sell to a buyer. Or so. That wouldn't hurt. I mean, what's called? I don't think it should be banned because of how, like, dumb it is, because that's just freedom of speech being banned at that point. I think it should be dumb for it should be banned for its security threat.
Part of their daily lives. Rest assured, we aren't going anywhere.
I'm not going to play any more of this because it's mainly just a video letting the community know that they are going to be fighting as best they possibly can against this. And also, a lot of it's just talking about how special TikTok is, like it's such a wonderful, joyous place with sunshine and unicorns. Like, you know, it's delightful on TikTok, and we want to preserve that, so that's what we're fighting for. That's not what you're fighting for. You're fighting for TikTok so hard because it's such a massive moneymaker that has a huge adoption in the United States. You don't give a fuck about like the actual culture on TikTok. If you did, there'd be significantly less degeneracy on it, I imagine. Like there's, like I said, even aside from like the data stuff and the spying potential, there have been some legitimately shady things going on with TikTok. The reason why they want this so badly to avoid divesting and avoid being banned is because it makes so much money. And they have so many users in the United States that they do not want to lose and they do not want to give over to a different company, obviously. So yeah, anyway, I guess we'll see if TikTok is banned within the year, and if it is, that's gonna...
Here's some ordinary video. I accidentally had my battery.
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and before somebody tells you to look between two characters on your keyboard, I'm here to tell you about something pretty wild that happened today. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know that TikTok is basically officially banned as of today? Now you might not know this, but apparently the United States, out of nowhere, signed an entire bill package, a $95 billion package that was supposed to assist countries like Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and inside that bill package was a tiny little provision for TikTok, where the bill said a provision will force the Chinese company ByteDance to sell the popular social media service TikTok. Now, TikTok's one of the largest social media services on the
They've
planet right now.
spawned. We don't have enough firepower to get rid of them. Like bullets.
Americans use TikTok on a pretty daily basis, alright? You might have seen somebody on your subway just scrolling through video feeds and video feeds and video feeds, watching whatever slop gets thrown in their way. And to be honest, most social media services are kind of like that. TikTok is just the most aggressive version of it. Their algorithm is pretty good enough for people to sit there for hours on end wasting their lives away, but then again, I guess most people waste their lives away on social media, so I guess it really is a brand of what poison you pick. Now, TikTok was a special brand of poison because it was the only social media poison that never originated from the United States that gained mainstream approval. To understand most of the biggest social media services in the world, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, all of that exists from right here, North America. Okay, this world, this part of the world.
I have no problem with companies not from North America having prominence here. It's just the fact that they literally steal your data.
The world over by storm. An application, by the way, that's also banned in its home country. TikTok does not exist in China. They have something called Douyin, and if you think it consists of the same cancer that we have, no. Kids over there get fed a healthy diet of education. Kids over here get fed a healthy diet of, like, dangerous licks, okay? Devious licks, so to speak. So it's a different world, so to speak, but to give you an idea, to whittle you on back, the bill that we looked at last time, HR 7521, was known as the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act. Now, that's a pretty interesting sounding act, but a general idea is it says it shall be unlawful for an entity to distribute, maintain, or update a foreign adversary-controlled application by carrying out within the land or maritime borders of the United States. So that basically means if you're an app store like Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store or any Play Store or any type of application store on a mobile device or PC device or whatever, then you are unable to update or facilitate the distribution of that application, okay? This doesn't mean that you can't just download TikTok's APK file from like a Chinese web server somewhere and have it running on your Android device. From my understanding, that is still totally okay because the website and server exists outside U.S. jurisdiction. Yes, it wouldn't be legal for that country to interact with the United States, and I'm sure there might be safeguards at the ISP level to prevent that, but generally this basically kills an application, okay? If most people who have an iPhone, they can only get their applications in the US from the App Store. If TikTok has gone from the App Store, that means most people's access to TikTok is effectively gone. Now, when they talk about foreign adversary application, it means a website, desktop application, mobile application, augmented immersive tech application that is operated directly or indirectly by ByteDance, TikTok, a subsidiary of those companies, or an entity identified is controlled by a foreign adversary, a covered company that is controlled by any foreign adversary, and that is determined by the president to present a significant threat to the national security of the United States. So over the last
Okay, I have to admit, I don't really have a lot of respect for our president. I will respect him a little bit more if he does go through with this.
A lot of agencies in the United States have said that TikTok can be risky. For instance, back in November 22, the FBI even alleged that TikTok posed a national security threat. Now, one of the FBI directors here said they include the possibility that the Chinese government could use it to control data collection on millions of users or control the recommendation algorithm, which could be used to influence operations if they so chose, or to control the software on millions of devices, which give it an opportunity to potentially technically compromise personal devices. So this middle section is important when they talk about the recommendation algorithm. I think in this case, the United States says that there's a serious risk that, for instance, if you're having an election, right, like an election is coming up, and the Chinese government wanted, say, one party to win over the other, they could use their recommendation algorithm to feed pro-propaganda for that party they want to win to at least 1/3 of Americans, right, in the country. Because 1/3, roughly, are using their application.
I'm not gonna support it 100% because it's not confirmed what they did with Joe Biden.
The same to other countries. They most
I'm not, again, not gonna like say they did because I have no proof that they did. This is thought.
Magnitude, the U.S., China, Russia, so on and so forth. Hypocrisy pretty much flies around like no tomorrow. I think this is a situation where the U.S. government is actually a little pissed that they don't have a backdoor to this specific application. It may be a national security threat, don't get me wrong. I definitely don't discount it. There's been an issue even with other journalists investigating it, like Forbes back in the day, when they were looking at how TikTok allegedly spied on actual journalists from their organization. Now, all of this shit is incredibly shady, okay? And this is missing at least a couple more years of actual investigations and write-ups by security companies. So TikTok has effectively been thrown into the ban. Now, TikTok has come out and basically said, this is unconstitutional, and we will challenge it in court. We believe the facts and the law are clearly on our side, and we will ultimately prevail. The fact is we have invested billions of dollars to keep U.S. data safe and our platform free from outside...
Keep saying that way you can actually believe yourself.
The ban would devastate 7 million businesses and silence 170 million Americans. As we continue to challenge this unconstitutional ban, we will continue investing and innovating to ensure TikTok remains a space where Americans from all walks of life can safely come to share their experiences, find joy, and be inspired. So to understand, it's kind of wild seeing a Chinese company talk about freedoms and the Constitution this hard, but they're effectively going to fight this in court. Now, from my understanding, and again, I'm no lawyer, but again, it's not hard to understand that this ban will go into effect in a year. Okay, so roughly a year from now, you have to either divest the company, okay, meaning that you sell TikTok Hop to another company that is not a foreign adversary, so most likely either Microsoft, Google, Facebook, so on or so forth. If any company is willing to purchase TikTok and integrate the entire operation into their current business model. Or the entire operation is effectively banned. They self-ban themselves if you do not divest. Now, obviously, TikTok is a very valuable company, and people kind of forget the value it has in the entire world. Now, obviously, TikTok is banned in places already. I believe India actually has...
Yeah, India has them banned.
So they already lost that massive market. Now, the United States is a seriously massive market and nobody wants to lose. So if the U.S. bans it, there's kind of a weirdly healthy chance that other big Western countries actually start banning the shit. Could you imagine if tomorrow, like, Canada announces a ban? Could you imagine if, like, Mexico announces a ban? Could you imagine if, like, the EU starts announcing a ban, the UK? At that moment in time, this could be a giant domino effect that basically throws TikTok into serious harm. And
imagine, alternate history, China nukes US because not because of resource wars like Fallout, they nuke it because they had TikTok.
In the Canadian courts, in the European courts, in all these courts at the same time. It's almost like, hey, listen, either you sell it off to us or you could leave our market and, you know, maybe potentially have to leave other markets in the future, or if you're willing to fight, completely bankrupt your organization to the point where you don't really feel like the money poured in is actually worth, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? That's kind of basically where things are at. And it's kind of funny watching the CEO for this company come out and basically talk about this to the TikTok audience. Again, it's wild that China, a country known for its massive human rights violations and authoritarian control, is now leveraging a constitution that is antithetical to itself in order to protect and preserve its application. Now you might be wondering, wow, Muda, you must be happy watching TikTok and Skibbity Toilet get a ban. And this is where I'm actually not. I've actually maintained that having TikTok being banned sets an incredibly dangerous precedent. Look, we live in a free part of the world, okay? I might not be a Canadian, but I share a lot of similar freedoms that Americans have. But Americans really are the freest country in the world. If you think about it, one of the best benefits of the United States is being able to, I don't know, talk shit and criticize the president even, right? The sitting leader, the executive leader of a country. You know, you may not like a certain president, but the best part about the law is you can talk shit about them. You can talk shit about anybody. Could you imagine living in China, not being able to say anything negative about the current sitting president, prime minister? Could you imagine sitting in Saudi Arabia and trying to challenge what Mohammed bin Salman is trying to say? Could you imagine being in a part of the world where it is actually tyrannical? Americans don't have to experience that. There is freedom upon freedom upon freedom.
He's right. I will not agree. Disagree with him.
Whatever the fuck you want on your application. One of the scariest things to me, alright, is living in a country like China where access to information isn't freely available. You can't go to google.com in China and look up actual atrocities committed by the world. You can only look at a curated version the Chinese government wants you to see. And I feel like laws like this, however tiny and sometimes specific they are for preventing certain applications, sets a really bad precedent. I don't think that a government should be able to decide what you should and shouldn't install on your device, or what you should and shouldn't
I actually agree with them.
from your own local servers, right? There are exceptions, obviously. Illegal material, the government clamps down on it. But applications and social media? That's kind of weird. And that sets a bad precedent. Today it could be TikTok. Tomorrow it could be another application from another country that suddenly gets deemed a foreign adversary. And for all of TikTok's issues and whatnot, it's never been a clear-cut situation that they have been actively spying on citizens. More so than any other country or any other application like Facebook has been spying on its own users.
Oh yeah,
It's
Facebook,
weird
yeah.
to set, and honestly, I don't really feel that good about it. I feel like it's kind of a way to inch yourself towards losing the freedoms that I feel people take for granted all the time. I really do feel that way. I feel like people take the freedoms that they are given in this part of the world for granted.
Yeah, I do agree
That's
with
really where
you
I'm at.
here, because the most powerful weapon in the world is not nukes.
Having, you know,
It's not guns,
being
it's your
able to
voice.
freely and do what you want on your devices or your computers. You know,
Because your voice can change so
throughout
much.
The first video I've ever made on my channel. The first year I've ever made videos on my channel, I've talked about encryption, I've talked about security, I've talked about freedoms, I've talked about making sure that the world around you, the computers that you have, the data that you have, the world that you have is private, it's safe, it's secure, and ultimately, the internet is one of the last bastions of real freedom. And when governments and world leaders start dictating what you can and can't do on that internet, you know, obviously aside of those specific exceptions, which are illegal material, as you know, that's a scary thought. But that's the world we live in. So TikTok's probably going to end up fighting this for a long time. And if you are a TikToker out there worried about, shit, what am I going to do a year from now when the ban goes into effect if TikTok doesn't divest? I think because of ongoing legal proceedings, this might end up being a situation that takes several years to happen. But if you are a TikToker primarily, you know, I'm looking at you, Miles Morales, you know, the NPC guy fucking losing it lately, might want to start switching to YouTube Shorts. Might want to start switching to something your country is friendly with. But yeah, bad precedent and all, ladies and gentlemen. This is me, Mudaharn. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it, I am out.
Very interesting, like, thing happening now. Sorry, I'm not gonna make.
Ready to make a change from traditional tobacco?
No, because I don't smoke.
Each of these disasters.
7 worst disasters that were easy to prevent.
Countless victims met their demise when they were least
Chernobyl, Fukushima, probably were easy to prevent. Chernobyl could have been prevented if they built a better reactor and used more actively trained staff. And Fukushima could be prevented if roughly you took the generators and put them away from basements. Now, that's just very roughly what they could have done to prevent.
20 people dead and dozens
Dude.
of families devastated.
20 people?
It soon spirals into America's deadliest transportation disaster in recent history. Was it sheer negligence or an inescapable tragedy? On October 6, 2018, Amy Steenberg's friends and family planned to celebrate her 30th birthday at a brewery about an hour away. After the initial limo rental was canceled at the last minute, they
The eye has power going through it.
Prestige limousine of Wilton. The white stretch limousine they ordered was a customized 2001 Ford Excursion XLT. The massive SUV, weighing 10,000 pounds, underwent a dramatic transformation. It was split in half and seamlessly welded together, extending its length by an additional 12 feet, effectively morphing
Are you kidding me?
into a structure. At approximately 1:30 p.m.,
Dude, stretch limos are
the scene
weird.
pulled up, and a group of 17 eagerly boarded the vehicle. Among them were 4 sisters, 2 brothers, 3 Army veterans, and 2 newlywed couples. Inside the excursion, the celebrants were greeted by flashy neon lights, worn-out padded benches, and floorboards marred by rust. One of the partygoers reached out to a friend who had initially planned to join, but decided against it, saying, "The limo sounds like it's going to explode." Yes, haha, it's a junker, literally. The motor is making everyone deaf. The limousine headed out.
Dude, that guy's a soul survivor.
30, a winding 2-lane road that cuts through the countryside toward the brewery in Cooperstown, about an hour's drive from Montgomery County, New York. The group was enjoying themselves, taking photos and chatting as they rode along. However, not long into the trip, something went horribly wrong. As the car drove down a steep hill towards a T-junction in Skohari, the driver urgently hit the brakes, but to his horror, the brake system failed. The limousine's speed rapidly increased, quickly surpassing 100 miles per hour. Desperate to avoid a collision when the car stopped at the intersection, the driver made a split-second decision to veer over the double pavement striping, bypassing the stop sign and careening into the driveway of a nearby restaurant. On the opposite side of the road, nestled in the parking lot of a country store, the Excursion collided with a parked Toyota Highlander, hurtling the SUV 80 feet through the air. Two unsuspecting pedestrians, a father and son-in-law, were tragically caught in a path of destruction when the Highlander fatally struck them.
That sucks.
Sadly, the calamity did not end there. Despite ramming into the Highlander, the Excursion continued at a speed of around 80 miles per hour towards its final resting place. The violent impact of trees sent fragments of debris flying through the air. The sound of shattering glass and twisting metal reverberated through the air. The limousine ultimately came to rest in a ditch, with the engine bay nearly flattened. Surprisingly, the exterior of the passenger compartment appeared eerily intact, masking the gruesome reality within. The collision instantly claimed the lives of 16 individuals.
16
The force
people.
of the impact caused fatal injuries. The absence of seatbelts exacerbated the situation, leading to further harm as the passengers' bodies collided within the cabin. Emergency responders were quickly dispatched to the scene. The situation was dire.
They grabbed the jaws. I fired the jaws up. They went down there within 2 minutes. They had that cargo board full of bodies out. They were still alive. And we kept going.
In the aftermath, the death toll rose to 20, with 2 additional lives lost within hours. This included all 18 individuals in the limousine.
So what happened?
It
Did
was
someone get
one
drunk?
of the
Someone go too
deadliest
fast?
transportation accidents in recent history, leaving behind shattered families and grieving friends. The extent of the tragedy had such a profound impact.
I mean, 20 people in one
Experienced
accident, that is
paramedics
atrocious.
Suffered severe mental health issues.
That's
due to
terrible.
The distressing scene they encountered at the crash site. After the crash, an intensive investigation began to uncover the causes and potential factors at play. It wasn't long before a series of troubling information came to light. The limousine was in poor condition, with numerous mechanical issues that had not been addressed. Federal authorities had found that the company that stretched the limo in 2001 didn't have the required license.
I want to see my
They
car
failed to
stretch.
upgrade the brakes to handle the extra
Not like
weight.
specifically my car, but I want to see what happens if you show to cross rate.
Classified the Excursion as a bus because of its size. It hadn't gone through the necessary certification or inspection process. More troublingly, the department had issued 2 separate orders for the limo to be taken off the road in the months leading up to the accident. Despite this,
Again, that could have been
indicating
prevented.
the
Just take it off the road.
fitness was missing at the time of the crash. Additionally, the company had already been ordered to surrender the registration and license plates for all his vehicles, including the limo, because of previous violations. Federal records show the company had received 22 citations for
We're in the area with the highest amount of blood bugs in the
24
game.
months before the crash. In September, 3 of their vehicles failed inspections and were cited for infractions, such as defective emergency exits
Careful for mine.
and malfunctioning brakes. The driver was not properly licensed to operate the vehicle. He was also not subjected to mandatory drug testing, as an autopsy would later reveal the presence of THC in his system.
Ooh.
Numerous lap seatbelts in the limousine went unnoticed by the passengers because they were hidden beneath the
DUI.
benches.
And just a note, DUI doesn't mean, you know, you have to be under the influence of alcohol. You can be under the influence of any drug and be charged for DUI.
It's unclear why none of the passengers had buckled up. As
Uh-oh.
investigations progressed, unsettling
Uh-oh.
regarding the limo company's clandestine ties to law enforcement. Shahed Hussein, the company's owner, had a controversial past, having been an informant for the FBI in a terrorism investigation. What?
Did you know that in Texas, rifles can be carried in public without a license? Whereas in Florida, no open carrying is allowed, except in unique situations.
Open carry is dumb. Don't open carry. Someone could literally just go up and snatch your gun out of your hands and then use it against you.
Turned to his native Pakistan 6 months before the crash. But Shahed's connection
I hear,
shielded him from
Servo
criminal
Max.
actions. In March 2019, a grand jury indicted him and his son, Nauman, on charges of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. The charges alleged that the younger Hussein had allowed the limousine to remain in service despite knowing it was unsafe. In fact, state officials had declared it unfit for use a month prior. Though prosecutors alleged that Nauman removed the out-of-service sticker from the windshield, and that his actions had directly contributed to the deaths of the passengers. After initially entering a plea of not guilty, Hussein struck a deal with prosecutors in February 2021. In exchange for pleading guilty to 20 counts of criminally negligent homicide, 1 count of manslaughter, and 1 count of assault, Hussein was sentenced to probation and community service, but avoided prison time. But his time in court wasn't over. The outcome sparked fury among the victims' families.
Yeah, no kidding. I would have. He needs to go to prison. This is an accident. He could have avoided this.
A judge dismissed the deal as fundamental.
That's a death claw.
Saying it failed to
Holy
allow
shit.
Hussein's awareness of the risks. As a result, Nauman Hussein withdrew his plea. More than 5 years after the tragic accident, justice would finally be done.
Today he was sentenced to 5 years after hearing heart-wrenching statements from 9 different family members. The juror said it was the limo operator's repeated efforts to observe DOT rules and regulations, the lack of maintenance on the limo that led to this guilty verdict.
Well, the sentence handed down
2 more.
is
You need to be
less
very
than
careful.
families had hoped for. Their advocacy for safety and reform in the transport sector has prompted tangible change in the industry with the Limo Safe legislation. The new mandate calls for stricter vehicle inspections, amplified oversight of limo operating.
It sucks because usually it takes disaster for all these acts to be passed.
Equipment in the vehicles.
Well, at least it means their deaths won't be in vain. I don't want to say sacrifice. That's terrible to say. I'm so sorry I said that. I did not even mean to say that.
A summer retreat rapidly transforms into
Those wrong words.
from inside their
I
camper.
retract that. But their death is not in vain. To a point, because now they are forced. Oh, that's a mine.
Below their window. Now everything is gone. Just a few trailers are stuck to trees and waves of muddy water around them. Despite the gravity of the situation, the family is safe now. A wave flood carrying logs and rocks had stormed through. The sudden onslaught threw them into a desperate struggle for survival, the shadow of death looming. Dozens of others weren't as lucky. It came out of nowhere and caught them by surprise. Except for a few who knew it was only a matter of time before the inevitable. On the morning of Wednesday, August 7th, 1996, the Spanish National Institute of Meteorology issued a warning about the incoming storm for the northern part of the country. Heavy summer rains are frequent for this region, but according to experts, this one was more intensive, with the province of Aragon expected to be the most affected. And nestled in the north of it, deep in the Pyrenees mountain range, lies the Sierra de las Nieves campsite, one of the most beautiful in inland Spain at the time. The award-winning facility opened 6 years earlier and was renowned for its quality. In August, over 600 guests registered at the site. Even though many had decided to go on excursions, the place was swarming with people unfazed by the rain. After all, one summer shower definitely couldn't change their mood. When it started to pour in the late afternoon, people withdrew into their tents and campers and waited for the rain to stop. However, half an hour later, it was getting heavier. Nevertheless, it still didn't seem to bother the guests. Tucked away in their tents, they were unaware they were resting in a death trap. Las Nieves campsite was built on a sediment deposit at the foothold of 2 steep hills. But, more importantly, at the exit of the Eris Ravine that runs between them. Over the years, it has been prone to powerful torrents of water rushing through its channel during periods of heavy rainfall. The estimated rainfall at the campsite was 200 to 250 millimeters on that day of the disaster. About 1/4 of that rainfall came down in just 8 minutes.
Why did no one tell Illinois drivers about this new rule?
If you are currently insured, drive less than 50 miles a day and live in a
No.
The ground couldn't absorb that much water, so all the excess flowed down the ravine, picking up logs and rocks. Then,
MIA since switch home, but now we don't want the dead drops tag. Des wants you to check it out.
Checking out dead drops is your job.
Not when it could be a big old trap from the inside. Once you take care of the dead drop.
Setting human-machine interface to 100%. Good evening, Agent. My data indicates I have the location of a Black Ops cache. It contains supplies our organization.
Bet you never met a synth before Glory.
Trash can Carla.
I'm running synth.
Desdemona.
Wealth.
Establishing Mercer Safe House is a sign we're on the road to recovery. Thank you for that.
Tinker Tom's cooking up something.
Hi.
Get him.
The census sweep says you're clean. Hooray!
I'm relieved.
Whoa. Okay, have you eaten any?
No, I never eat anything.
You see, that's smart. That's smart, man. S-M-A-R-T. But you got... The Institute has these tiny microscopic robots in the food, man. And they report.
Tom, that's a rough.
You just don't get it, Carrington.
If you had...
Okay. If
There's battery acid in that...
you can't nuke an omelet without irradiating some eggs.
Uh-huh. Hit me, Tom.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What am I doing?
Now you're encouraging him.
Hey, you get it.
Oh, I feel awful.
That feeling is the price of freedom, man. Now, I got all...
Bitch, you almost killed me.
Sorry, Tinker Tom's got me doing something.
You might want to flush your system for red. Glad you're with us.
Use the back entrance. Too much traffic to the church and we'll burn this hiding.
Everyone's all, you've been hitting the chems way too hard. But I got my eyes open. I see. Hey, I got everything you field agent type.
Yeah? Show me what you got.
Money. Okay, let me see how I get the basically again.
Hard, and then she'll send you off. He will then give you the final mission that we need in order to unlock the ballistic weave armor mod. She will give you the quest called Jackmoth. She'll give you this card, and then she'll send you off to a random location. Just go to the random location and...
We're all the synths got.
Setting human-machine interface to 100%. I have it. Railroad Alpha.
A pre-war cache.
Unable the cache.
Uh-huh. Nice. That sounds
correct. You only have...
Got it.
Excuse me.
I'm getting tired of waiting.
Really want freedom.
No, it's called Google. You wouldn't understand. It's not in your universe.
Sound.
That's how I feel at 7.
Would it kill them to let me know mission specs before
Fidget, it's unescapable. I'm soft locked into this game, and I have to log back.
Caused a blockage at the bridge, which broke under pressure, sending a wave of water and debris into the campsite. In just a few moments, calmness gave way to panic. As the waves swept through, guests were thrown into a fight for survival. Many were caught by surprise and had no time to escape. They struggled to stay afloat as the water carried them downstream, along with tents, furniture, cars, and even large campers. One of the survivors, members of the current dragged him and his family. Somehow, he got trapped in the branches of a falling tree. He was lucky as he climbed it and found rescue in the high canopy. But unfortunately, his parents and 2 brothers were taken away by the torrent. Guests caught by the torrent while in their campers were somewhat better positioned and out of direct reach of the water. Yet, they were trapped inside their vans and trailers, floating like boats. Like the teen, those trapped in the trees were lucky, as they were saved from being swept away by the flood.
I need to go to my home and sleep and dump off some loot.
As time passed, the water level declined, and the flood lost its destructive power. Nevertheless, the rain was still pouring, and brown, muddy water flowed through the camp, preventing people from escaping or reaching those still in danger. Precious time was lost until the water dropped to a safe level. Despite being deeply distraught by the tragedy, there was no time to lose, as many people still had to be rescued. Luckily, the news of the disaster quickly reached
I only have 9 minutes, so I have to eat and get out.
Residents, along with a small firefighting team that rushed to assist. They sent out an all-out call for help, and by nightfall, hundreds of soldiers, Red Cross members, and volunteers were at the site. Throughout the night, they worked diligently to rescue as many people as possible. All injured were transferred to Viescas, where they received first aid before being sent to a hospital. Sadly, as the rescue operation progressed, the first victims of the flood appeared. But by then, the darkness prevented the rescuers from assessing the scale of the tragedy. They only realized the horror of the campsite the next morning. Guests and rescuers wandered through the grounds covered in mud, searching for survivors and personal belongings. Where there used to be trees, was now strewn with demolished cars and trailers. The camp streets had disappeared. Water, mud, and piles of rubble covered the entire area. Finding anyone was a true challenge. Even though trained dogs were brought in, the mud...
Shepherds!
So rescuers found
Shepherds are good boys.
Survivors
and girls.
dead buried beneath. The only way they could scan the ground was with the help of sticks, which which was a slow and wearing process. Adding to the already challenging rescue, the torrent had carried bodies into the Gallego River. One victim was found 8 miles away in the Sabiñánigo swamp. Like many others, the force from the water was so powerful that it stripped their clothes off. The recovery operation lasted for days. Ambulances and helicopters transferred bodies to a makeshift morgue for identification. It was an arduous process. The police did not have exact information on the number of guests, nor did they know their identities. The reception computer was destroyed in the flood and rendered useless. Traumatized and numbed from the cold, the survivors were sent to Viescas, where a temporary shelter was established. Its residents showed solidarity for victims by offering them clothes, food, and accommodation in their homes. Experts claimed a flood like this only happens once every 200 years. But was that the case at the Viescas campsite? Many disagreed. The disaster didn't just come out of the blue, and it was actually people who got in the way of nature, not the other way around. Some blamed the camp's location at the mouth of the ravine that had shown a high flash flood potential in the past. In fact, following a dramatic flood 70 years earlier, authorities built a channel through the midline of the sediment deposit to direct water in case of heavy rainfall and protect the area. Furthermore, 36 sediment retention dams were built along the Aras ravine to prevent landslides. However, the system built to prevent floods only contributed to the 1996 tragedy. During the storm, the excess water rushed down the ravine. This overwhelmed and broke most of the dams, releasing the sediments that they stored. As this happened, it picked up roughly 6,000 truckloads of logs, mud, and rocks. Eventually, the debris was stopped by a bridge above the campground, but it couldn't bear the pressure and broke, letting loose a wave of rubble that overwhelmed the artificial channel and covered the campsite. 87 people died in the Viescas campsite disaster. The last body would only be discovered nearly a year later, on July 28, 1997. While workers were removing the ravine bed near the scene of the tragedy, they found the remains of a 6-year-old boy. Considering the destructive force of the flood, it was fortunate that more than 500 visitors survived the tragedy, many of whom were absent from the park at the time. The mayor of Viescas rejected all accusations, instead claiming that the campsite was built in accordance with regulations. Yet records showed that before the construction, a government official had issued a negative report precisely because of the location's risk. The government recklessly neglected an expert's opinion. Now it was time to pay the price for it. The court of Huesca dismissed a criminal charge, citing the flood as exceptional and unpredictable, which the victims' families rejected. Instead, it commenced a decade-long legal battle with authorities. Finally, in 2005, the National Court recognized the authorities' responsibility and ordered the government of Aragon and the Ministry of the Environment to jointly indemnify 63 of the 87 fatalities with 11.2 million euros. The government never paid its share of the compensation. As for the Las Nieves campsite, it was rebuilt, but in a new, safer location. A memorial was erected where it once stood. A grim reminder that nature has its laws, and you cannot bypass them.
That's scary. Nature is powerful. I mean, tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, earthquakes. You name them.
Don't dally. We're here to be examined.
Facial reconstruction?
No, if you have it.
Yeah.
Still.
You don't have cures for chemical.
We can sober you up. Please. And that's that. Anything else bothering you?
That was it.
All right. Don't ruin. Thirsty. Coca-Cola.
Arturo.
You know, a shotgun's great insurance against raiders.
Uh-huh. I've got a few minutes to browse.
Something...
Yes, my meth lab is made. I've been using the standard receiver all this time. You're finally crafting my crib, dog. Feels so good to be able to cook now. I'll decorate this another time, but you know. And then when I get up today, when I get back, and I have to do some homework, but when I get back, I'm gonna feel all refreshed in my game. Alright, so we have two ideas when we come back. When we come back, we need to go get the Overseer's Guardian, and we need to go do that one quest that Pam sent us on. With that quest, we can get Ballistic Weave, and with the Overseer's Guardian, we can overpower anything in the game. We have a ton of 45 bullets. If we get those 45 bullets all gathered up, then we can efficiently use the Overseer's Guardian. We're going pretty good right now, guys.